What's up, sophomores? World history. Today is May 21st. It's about 9:50 in the morning here. Getting a little earlier start than I've been the past couple days, getting off my lazy grind. Um, Today's video is going to be relatively brief and short. We're kind of going to continue on about current global issues in the world and what we're having to deal with, and um, how we got to keep fighting the good fight. Today's video is all about global climate change, and that's really kind of over the past 25 years has really become a more mainstream threat to humanity. Um, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we are going to go from there. So let's go ahead. Let's just get right into it. Um, so the last video we talked about a lot of this consumerism and the increase for demand and all this consumption and consumption and consumption. Well, the problem is this: when you're consuming all that stuff, when you're buying, there's going to be increased factory production, increased air and road traffic, increased emissions into the atmosphere, increased pollution and waste, increase CO2 levels in our atmosphere. I mean, it goes on and on. The more we're spending and the more we are thriving as humans, at least the way we know how to thrive, it's taking, it's causing irreversible damage to our Earth and to our planet. Um, I guess I gotta change that. It would be irreversible. I gotta learn how to spell, guys. Eh, So that's kind of where we're at now. Um, Forests across the globe have been destroyed for resources. This is pretty kind of well noted in like Southeast Asia and countries like Indonesia or in the Amazon. Um, Hundreds of billions of barrels per day. I'm not joking. Probably not now because we're in kind of coronavirus and people aren't doing anything. But typically, and if you were to go back a few months ago, when things were normal, hundreds of billions of barrels are pretty much used up per day of oil and gas. That's kind of crazy. Think about what one big barrel looks like. Think about what 10 big barrels look like. Think about what 100 would, right? Keep doing that. 1,000, 10,000. Think about what hundreds of billions would look like. That'd be crazy, right? Um, Obviously, we're affecting like wildlife when we're cutting down forests. We're driving species to extinction, and when species begin to go extinct, that affects the kind of natural balance and order of like the cycle and circles of life and the local ecology and the the effects of if one species is removed from the food chain, that affects everyone. um, and that's a big deal because then it affects us. um, the big thing is what we're seeing now is like bees, who help pollinate plants and produce honey. They're under a lot of threat right now with climate change, and them amongst many other species. We have very limited knowledge of how long plastics last. Um, at least we used to. Now we have a better idea. Um, but for a very, very long time throughout human history, we didn't know how long plastics lasted. We didn't know how pollution worked, and we didn't know how it affected wildlife and climate patterns. So that's why, up until the past 20 years or so, humans just kind of lived, recklessly when in terms of what we were thinking about the environment and throwing things out and where we were dumping our pollution and waste. And it's just caused irreversible damage, is what most scientists are saying now. um, because what we've done since the Industrial Revolution, which was less than 200 years ago, has countered the past billions of years of like Earth history to in some extent. It's kind of crazy. Um, but this pollution, the effects of climate change, it all ultimately comes down to business, and it's all ultimately about keeping and growing money, um, because we have to meet the demands of the world population, and people aren't willing to shift and live with less, and as a result, we're causing, potentially the next great crisis after, because we're going to survive COVID, but the next great crisis is going to be, what in 40, 50 years, what's going to happen to our climate if we don't start making the changes that we need to make now. I can't tell you what the future is going to hold. It's probably not going to be the most prosperous or optimistic. And a lot of the blame should go on the older generations of people who, when even in the early days back in the 70s and 60s, when the first climate change theories were coming about, those scientists were rejected. And for years, big business and big corporate headwigs knew about these climate effects, but they didn't really believe it, and they didn't want to change anything because it was affecting their bottom line. You know, I always think it's very ironic how here we are in the COVID shutdown, right? When the most at risk population is the oldest, most sickly group of people. And yet a lot of those people lived very recklessly and polluted the earth and the climate. And now the young generation is going to have to deal with that. And there's no punishment on them. It's very funny and ironic. Um, you know, so it's just, talking about like the climate, it gets me kind of upset and frustrated. But the good news is, I think there's hope, and I have trust in you and us and the young people of the world who are going to make the future, to really make the changes necessary in order to really um, survive and thrive in the years to come. Um, you're already seeing now with the kind of an ironic kind of twist, like as the shutdown around the world has happened, pollution levels have gone down. LA has clear days. You're seeing mountain ranges now. Like you can see like the Himalayas from hundreds of miles away in India now, things you weren't ever able to do in decades the last time. Um, Species and animals are starting to come back to areas they would never go to before. So there's been positive effects of in a weird way, of the shutdown, mainly on the environment. And it goes to show you how just in a short time, like if humans just disappeared, right, how the environment would really improve. But even more so, I think it demonstrates how, if we were to, instead of going back to normal, instead build a new normal, where we don't do the things we used to do and hopefully save our environment, maybe that's the best way forward. And that's what I believe um, we need to do. I think that's the only way that in 50 to 100 years, we're going to have a habitable planet for the majority of us. This is just some effects, right, of climate change. So, oil spills, trash in the sea, forests cut down. Here in California, the wildfires have been a real threat for us. Obviously, as we have longer droughts. It's not even just the droughts. It's California. We're seeing more extreme weather systems. So the winters are wetter. These past few winters have been wetter than what we've ever recorded, like in history. We've had like 3 pretty much torrential winters in a row of a lot of hard rain. Even this past winter was pretty wet, and so that causes like a lot of growth in the winters and in the spring months. And so the plants and the trees, they grow, right, and they overgrow almost. But then what happens is we get slammed with like a hardcore like drought and warmer temperatures, right? So now it's a little bit more extreme on the other end. So now you have all this like plant growth that over time, because it's not rain, slowly dies and dries up. And then it starts getting hotter, warmer, more extreme temperatures, and it's dry. And now you got like a tinderbox, right, that just is ready to catch on fire. And that's why, you know, we've had the fires that we've had where the smoke has come to the Bay Area. They've been these huge fires. That's never happened. That never happened before in my lifetime until the past 2 years we've had it. So, I mean, it's it's real. The effects are, it's, you know, a lot of people think things are just getting warmer. That's not necessarily true. It depends on where you live. Things are just getting more extreme. Inevitably, we're going to see stronger hurricanes, more powerful thunderstorms, more powerful tornadoes, more powerful blizzards. We're going to, you know, things are just going to get more extreme. So if you live in areas that are susceptible to those type of kind of um, climate phenomenons, then, you know, you're probably at the most risk. Okay. And so again, this is what our choice is. We either build a more sustainable future, what I see on the right hand side, or we continue, like after COVID, we go back and try and go back to the normal way. And I'm telling you now, within 100 years, the majority of the world is going to be inhospitable. There's only going to be a few handfuls of places that humans are going to be able to live, or we're then going to have to address changes at that point, and it's going to almost seem insurmountable. So, this just shows you global temperature change. This is from 1880. And you know, it kind of goes up and down, but to where we're at now, we've seen close to about a 2-degree overall Fahrenheit change in temperature just in the past 140 years alone. 2 degrees doesn't sound like a lot, but that's the difference between a melting point and a not melting point. We often hear about, like, oh, the glaciers are melting. Well, yeah, that's because areas that were closer, right, to the freezing point, to the melting point temperature, like 32 degrees, right, is what water freezes at. If you're at 31 degrees, the glaciers are frozen. When you get to 33, the glaciers are going to melt, right? That's how that works. So a 2-degree change is a big deal depending on where you live, right? 88 versus 90 degrees, 98 versus 100 degrees. It's a big difference. You feel 2 degrees, whether you realize it or not. 2 degrees is a lot. And if we keep going up, it's not going to be good. There's actually a cool New York Times like interactive model. Unfortunately, I read the New York Times, like I did my 3 limit for the month, so they're not going to let me do it. But I can actually click on it and at least get you started. It shows like your hometown, how much, see, it knocked me out. How much hotter your hometown is from the year you're born to now. Hayward's not going to be on there, but like San Francisco is, it's mostly big cities. So plug in San Francisco and you'll see the difference. San Francisco hasn't been affected too much, but if you go to cities like, look at New York, or like look at Phoenix or Las Vegas and stuff like that, the temperature change is crazy. It's interactive graph. It's pretty cool. These are like some before and after photos of the glaciers. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. That's in 2009 on the left, same time of the year, 2015 on the right. That's a huge difference just right there. Here we have 2006 left and 2015 right, same time, right? It talks about it's retreated by over 1,800 feet, this glacier in Switzerland. I mean, you can look at, these are just 2 photos, but you can look at these differences in glaciers in just 5 years time sometimes, right, and see how much of a difference is. It's not like a slow climb. The curve is getting steeper and steeper. The change is getting worse and worse unless we make changes. The last thing I want to show you today is, this one's kind of fun. Well, it's also kind of terrifying. As glaciers melt, the big thing is sea level rise, right? Because a lot of water is trapped up in the poles, and as things melt, that water has to go somewhere, right? So most experts think, and I just want to make sure, sea level rise by 20, let's see what 50 says, because most of us will be alive. 30 oh, don't give me centimeters, give me feet. Anywhere, a high scenario, so 100, oh God. So let's say 34 centimeters to inches. Okay, so that's over a foot. That's the low end. 30, and the high would be 69. This is just in 2050, so it'd be 2.5 feet. Okay, So this is just 2050, okay? Right? And this is just the estimate. So right now, we're looking at, where we're at right now. Southland, Chabot, we got Mount Eden. So if we go up a foot, boom, all of a sudden, look, all the wetlands, right? Like the areas by the San Mateo Bridge are in water now, right? Okay, even a part, I think this is like, that's like a train track over here. Even parts by like the Pepsi fields, they're gonna kind of have like areas of flooding. Let's say 2 feet happens. Areas in green, those are areas that are gonna be likely to flood, right? Areas that are in the blues are gonna be wet. So now you see even more kind of flooding happening, more areas of floods, right? Okay. What if we go to 3 feet? All of a sudden, all these areas now even more susceptible. This sports park is now probably underwater. This area and parts of these factories now over kind of in the industrial area Hayward are starting to get um, susceptible to floods. Let's go to 4 feet. Now this whole neighborhood underwater. Now we're getting close to Mount Eden High School, right? What happens if we go to 5 feet? Anyone live in this neighborhood or over here by Ruse? Not anymore. 6? Uh-oh. If you're living now look in these areas, right? Gone. Okay. Alvarado, everyone that lives over here. I don't know if anyone lives in this part of Union City, but no, you're not living there anymore. Okay. Let's go to 7 feet. Oh, dang. Now it's like Mount Eden High School. We're going to have waterfront property. It's going to be beautiful. 8 feet. Oh, no. Mr. Tomei finally has his swimming pool he's always wanted. Okay. Let's go to 9. Right? And let's go to 10. Almost all of our athletic fields gone. Okay. Anyone that lives in these neighborhoods, not anymore. You live across from Mount Eden? No, you live over here in this parts of Hayward, over by Industrial, over by Mission, Stratford Village, not anymore. Let's zoom out a bit. Look at the effects, right? Even people all the way down into Newark are getting affected by this, right? If we scroll up a little bit, this is the Oakland airport. It's completely underwater. The Oakland airport will be underwater, right? And not just the Oakland airport. And then if we go over, let's find SFO. The San Francisco airport will be underwater. Let's look at the San Jose airport might be safe. It's safe, but it's close, right? I mean, the Oakland airport's so susceptible. I think it's only like a 3-foot raise, which would really kind of cause problems. Let's see, 2 feet. Yeah, 2 feet. This area is all flooded. At 3 feet, that's underwater. At 4 feet, Siri's talking to me. At 4 feet, now you can't even really get to the airport because the way in's going to be blocked. So at 5 feet, boom, you're underwater. So, yeah, it seems like, well, Mr. Tomei, this is like a way, way long away thing. Like, it's not going to affect us. Who knows? It might affect us in our lifetime. And I want to be able to go to the airport when I want to go to the airport and not have to deal with, you know, building a new airport somewhere else. And I mean, the reality is we got to do our thing now and really put the pressure on the adults and the people in your life, the older people in our life, to really address and save climate change. If you want to play around with that map, you can. You can look at like other big cities like New York and stuff. That's kind of trippy too, because those areas like Manhattan, like the Statue of Liberty, just like underwater and stuff. It's like crazy. But go ahead. It's this last link right here on slide 18. But besides that, that's it. We'll be back again next week, and we'll talk about like the age of terrorism. That's kind of our next step. All right. Take care. Miss you guys, and stay easy.